Again, my name is Michael Nobleza, and I'm what is called a Fuse Core Executive Advisor. Fuse, like igniting the fuse, in this case for social change, and Core as a Marine Corps. And Fuse Core Fellows have been working in local governments across the country to tackle some of the biggest problems confronting our urban communities. Here in LA County, Fuse Core Fellows like me have been leading the efforts around equitable vaccine distribution that's coming up, connecting seniors to meals and other essential services, and childcare for essential workers. And my work has focused on helping our OIA to develop a plan to implement its immigrant protection and advancement strategy. I'm excited to share a little bit about a new initiative we're launching to support immigrant essential workers. Immigrant essential workers. And I'm also excited that some of the presenters on on this panel are leaders to whom I've looked to for the expertise. So I'm excited that we get to learn from them as well about the issues that matter most to our immigrant essential workers. So I want to spend time sharing with you some of what we've uncovered in the research, because I think, as Pilar had mentioned, ethnic media can play a key role in transforming how we talk about our immigrant workers in ways that give them dignity and bring visibility to their needs. So the first point that I want to emphasize is that oftentimes we talk about immigrants as if they're like outsiders or others, right? But in fact, here in LA County, 1 in 3 Angelenos are immigrants. And the Institute for Taxation and Economic Policy found or estimated that the county's undocumented immigrants, for example, contribute $544 million in tax revenue. Immigrants are more likely to become entrepreneurs, with 2/3 of our Main Street businesses like dry cleaners and restaurants being owned by immigrants. And of course, the topic of this conversation, immigrants make up anywhere between 40 and 60% of our essential workforce. There are janitors, our restaurant workers, our food delivery drivers, our warehouse workers, and of course, our healthcare workers. Immigrants are on the front line of the pandemic, going out to put themselves at risk of COVID-19 so that we might be able to stay home safe. And yet, the impact of the pandemic disproportionately impacts our immigrant essential workers. Health-wise, our immigrant essential workers work in conditions oftentimes where they're unable to maintain physical distance. Many workplaces and forms of work make using personal protective equipment difficult. Then these same workers go back to some of the most crowded neighborhoods of the county where they're intermingling with other workers who've also been at high risk of exposure. And these neighborhoods also tend to be places that are next to industrial plants and freeways, and thereby they're also subject to unhealthy conditions that make them more susceptible and to have pre-existing conditions. And immigrants who already have to deal with the challenges of oftentimes feeling alone coming to a new country have to deal with another form of social isolation because they're staying at home and the cultural stigma of accessing mental health resources. But many of our essential workers, for them, their physical health actually comes second to their economic health of their households. Before the pandemic, many of our essential workers were already struggling to get by. The current public health crisis has already laid bare just how bad things are for immigrant workers. Our undocumented workers are unable to access most forms of federal or state employment benefits, unemployment benefits. And as you may know, the CARES Act was written in such a way that anyone who didn't have a social security number or anyone who lived with someone in that situation wasn't able to access emergency economic assistance. Here in LA County, according to the USC Equity Research Institute, there are an estimated 2 million people who live in mixed status families, including 886,000 undocumented immigrants who did not receive CARES Act funding. So to put another way, 1,125,000 US citizens and green card holders who would have been entitled had they applied for their own did not get access to those CARES Act monies. And even worse, the economic pain caused by this pandemic is not felt equally among immigrants. Immigrant women are significantly represented in essential industries like sanitation and caregiving. And the result has been what economists call a she-cession, not a recession, a she-cession. Women make up 55% of the jobs lost at the beginning of the pandemic, and women of color, especially immigrants, have been disproportionately impacted. For example, Latino workers have unemployment rates as high as 20%. The OIA has been leading the charge in applying the immigrant lens to how the county responds to the challenges our immigrant essential workers confront. Earlier this year, the OIA hosted a DACA summit moderated by Univision LA's Leon Krause, in which 300 leaders and frontline educators and service providers, including nonprofits, advocacy groups, explored how to keep the American dream alive for DACA recipients. And in the past few months, the OIA has hosted webinars to address some of the most pressing issues confronting our immigrant essential workers, including how to vote safely through vote by mail in the last election, know your workers' rights, focus on maintaining a workplace safe and free of COVID, and housing security, eviction defense, and foreclosure prevention. And the OIA is now building on this momentum with our LA Immigrant Essential Workers Initiative, focused on protecting the well-being and health of our immigrant essential workers. The initiative will focus on raising awareness about some of these issues that we're talking about today. So we invite you to help us lift up those issues. In mid-February, the OIA will host a 2-day summit focused on our most vulnerable immigrant worker groups, including day laborers, domestic workers, and DACA recipients entering the workforce. And we'll be proposing board actions and other forms of legislative interventions to help address some of the gaps that federal and we'll be expanding our outreach and education efforts to connect our essential workers with county wraparound services. And I should note, by way of kind of pointing to a research on our own, that the OIA, with the support of US Digital Response, has developed a searchable map of organizations and services available to immigrants. You can find this resource at bit.ly, bit.ly / LACO Immigrant Services. So bit.ly / LACO Immigrant Services. And I know that they'll send this link as a follow-up in the email. So I'll pause here. I know I threw a lot at you, but I do hope that you all will do what you can to give voice to our immigrant essential workers.
Let me give you a little bit of a history behind our program. On November 17, 2015, the county adopted the Los Angeles County Minimum Wage Ordinance, establishing a new minimum wage program for the county. The applicability of the law is in the unincorporated areas of the county. The law became effective on July 1st, 2016 for larger businesses and subsequently a year after for smaller businesses. The county provides services to both employers and workers as well. Employers in a sense of education and information as to the requirements. And I think that's a very important aspect in ensuring that wage theft doesn't occur. In fact, to date, we have reached over 2,000 businesses in the unincorporated areas in an effort to educate the businesses regarding the county's minimum wage ordinance. We also contracted with community-based organizations, which consisted of a dozen nonprofit organizations in different sectors to ensure that workers in different ethnic communities that were subject to wage theft have resources available to them. Our staff is authorized to investigate and take appropriate action against employers, which are some of the tools that the ordinance provides to violate the county's minimum wage ordinance. This includes issuing citations, going through the due process to afford people voice to go through a due process. And I'd like to note that our ordinance carries hefty fines. It can range from up to $100 per day per violation to up to $1,000 per day per violation, depending on the sort of violations. If it's more egregious, like retaliation, and we've seen that, it's up to $1,000. We have authority to engage in settlements, and I'm happy to say that we reached over 1,500 employees for whom we've received back wages, and we have garnered over 1.3 million in back wages to those over 1,500 employees, along with fines as well, collectively. We do not negotiate back wages. Although we do engage in settlements, we do not negotiate back wages, because we know that based on records, based on our efforts, that this is the back wages that are owed to the workers. There's no negotiation in that. We do engage in settlement for the fines, depending on the violations and the tools afforded to us in our ordinance. Additionally, on September 13, 2016, we contracted with the City of Santa Monica to enforce Santa Monica's minimum wage ordinance, which carries similar provisions to the county, with the exception that they have paid sick leave provisions, hotel living wage provisions, and surcharges, amongst others. The enforcement process, as I mentioned, is similar to that of the county. However, the city's ordinance subjects employers to criminal liability if they violate any of the provisions set forth in that ordinance. Another major difference between the county and the city of Santa Monica is that the county is authorized to conduct directed investigations, meaning we do not need a complaint in order for us to investigate a business. And I think it's worthy to note that a lot of times employees are afraid, workers are afraid to come forward, and therefore we're happy to take a tip from a third party or any interested party from the public. We're happy to accept complaints anonymously from workers, as we do understand the vulnerability. We do understand that speaking in front of an employer or speaking about an employer could subject them to retaliation or some kind of an adverse action. I think our ordinance is a great tool for that. If the worker is subjected to retaliation or an adverse action, we have tools in our ordinance to allow us to remedy that, meaning from a hefty fine to reinstatement of the worker back to their position as they were prior to the retaliation. And in fact, in Santa Monica, there was a case that was prosecuted because when the worker came forward to discuss the problems that exist in the workplace, the worker was fired. We were able to get remedies, monetary remedies, and to get reinstatement for the worker. I think it's important that people come to us and let us know that these problems exist, because this is very burdensome. We've seen situations where workers work in subpar situations, and situations that are not per regulation, and when speaking up, they get retaliated against. I do want to mention that we have stay-at-home orders, and there's a pandemic, but that doesn't stop our work. Please report any wage theft violation, and we will go out there and we will investigate. We successfully virtually investigated a case recently against a large chain restaurant. The employee communicated the discrepancy in the pay she was receiving to the employer without success, so she reached out to us, and we were able to conduct a virtual inspection of the workplace. I think it's also of note that when a complainant comes forward and files a complaint, we don't just investigate that complaint, we investigate the entire business. The reason being is that when a problem exists with one employee, the problem will exist for others as well. And sometimes others don't want to come forward. So we'll conduct an entire audit of the workplace to ensure that every single person who's being subjected to wage theft receives fair pay, receives the pay that they need to receive based on law. That being said, complaints or inquiries could be filed on our website at www.dcba.lacounty.gov. We do accept complaints in person. However, due to the pandemic, that in-person portion is currently not available, but we do also accept complaints over the phone at 1-800-593-8222. Again, that number is 1-800-593-8222. It's very important, even if you're a patron at a restaurant or any other business and you see that there is no required posting, or that somebody communicates with you that they're not being paid the proper minimum wage, please contact us. We are also, we have this policy of we don't turn a blind eye on anything, although our jurisdiction extends to what our ordinance requires. We do have partnerships with the state and federal agencies that deal with this type of work. And we work with them on a continuous basis to ensure that not only the payment of minimum wage is remedied, but also other issues that may exist, such as overtime or meal and rest break violations or split shift differentials. So again, please feel free to contact us should there be any issues in your workplace, and we will investigate the entire workplace.
My name is Monica Nguyen, and I'm a program director for the LA County GAIN program, which is administered by LA County Department of Public Social Services, also known as DPSS. So DPSS administers federal, state, and county-funded programs that help people in need of cash assistance, nutritional benefits, healthcare coverage, and job training programs. We provide essential services to over 3.5 million people in LA County in 19 different languages, reflecting the diversity that is here in LA County. All of our wonderful communities. We are the country's largest public social services agency, and so we thank all of our media partners today for helping, tell the public about our services and allowing us opportunity to provide some information for the public today. Every day we can see around us those affected by COVID-19, including news reports about severe food insecurity and our increasing unemployment rate in LA County. So just as an example, last year, this time, our unemployment rate was 4.3%. And as of October, our unemployment rate in LA County was 12.3%. Peaking in September at 15.5%. So we have a large, much larger unemployment rate than we usually have here in LA County. And for us, it represents, a person, a parent, a family who needs our services and deserves much dignity and respect while they receive those services. As we in our department continue to, administer our mission of providing services through effective and caring service. So I'm here today to explain our GAIN program, which is the welfare to work job training essentially for our CalWORKs population. CalWORKs stands for the California Work Opportunity and Responsibility for Kids program. It is the state's version of the National Temporary Assistance for Needy Families program. So through CalWORKs, families with children ages 18 to 19 and younger can get cash assistance it's basically a safety net program for those who have lost jobs, families kind of ripped apart by COVID-19 or any other circumstance, single parents struggling. And through the CalWORKs program, those parents or family members can receive welfare to work training and job services through the LA County GAIN program. GAIN stands for Greater Avenues for Independence. And it is a state-funded and federally funded program for these families. What we do is we provide job search assistance, vocational training, educational opportunities. We also provide intensive case management, subsidized employment, adult basic education, you name it, and we have pretty much most services, including those who need help with domestic violence, which is a huge importance to us, mental health services and substance use disorder. Our goal is to help people overcome any barriers they have to finding and keeping employment. And we're able to provide these wide range of services through a partnership with many county agencies, including the Department of Mental Health, the Department of Public Health, the Los Angeles County Office of Education. All of our community colleges have CalWORKs offices on location, and that is in partnership with the state, who makes sure that our CalWORKs participants are assisted at the community college level. Um, so one of the questions I received was, what are the opportunities right now that maybe are different than under normal circumstances? And so I just wanted to reemphasize to our communities that even though we're in safer and home orders, and many of us have children who are not in school at the moment, who are distance learning with us at home, it provides an excellent opportunity to engage in online training. Most classes are virtual now, um, and we could help connect folks to online courses, English as a second language courses, um, the HiSET program, which is the new the retermed GED programs, to get a high school diploma, to advance skills, and be learning at the same time that the children are distance learning, to maximize kind of that time at home, and everybody on a Zoom like we are, to enhance some skills once we're no longer in safer at home orders. I think another missed opportunity, given the state of the world right now, is our emotional well-being. And our case managers and our offices can also help connect families to the Department of Mental Health for improving that emotional and well-being for parents and families during this time. It's a tough time, and so that's another opportunity that we have to just make sure that our parenting families are you know staying as healthy as possible. And during these activities, there's plenty of support that we can provide in terms of anybody that has to do anything outside the home. We can offer childcare. We provide assistance with any transportation that is necessary. And we provide assistance with any work-related expenses. So if there's tools and books that are needed in order to accomplish these tasks, we are here to help, and we can provide assistance with those. And lastly, just to mention, our families with children under 3, many receive assistance with purchasing diapers, which right now, with the world the way it is just an extra way in which we can help families who are facing some severe times right now. So through the GAIN program, our goal is to help CalWORKs families eliminate barriers, help them through this particularly tough time, and be ready for when our economy starts to um, have more opportunities and be competitive in the workforce. For eligibility requirements, the public can call us toll free at 877 292 4246. That's actually 292 GAIN for anybody who wants a little quick way to remember our customer service number. And as you can see, our regular customer service centers are open Monday through Friday and Saturdays, but our GAIN customer service line is open Monday through Friday from 8 to 5. So just the last bit, we provide services to 1 out of 3 county residents in total for receive services from our department. And we also help with many other programs, Medi-Cal, CalFresh, and during this time when food insecurity is at an all-time high, we just really wanted to remind everyone to not hesitate to apply for our state CalFresh program, which is known nationally as SNAP. We had in April 126,875 customers apply for CalFresh, and we want to continue supporting our community and make the effort to serve as many families as possible. Um, especially when it comes to our children and our elderly. Um, you know, CalFresh is an excellent opportunity to get that extra help. And now, as you might know, SSI recipients can also apply for CalFresh. They became eligible in 2019 for CalFresh benefits, which is of an extra help for our elderly and disabled. So anyone who wishes to apply for CalFresh, please don't hesitate to call our customer service center at 866-613-3777. We can take your application via telephone and work really, really well with each individual customer to expedite that application and approve those benefits as soon as possible. So, follow us on Twitter. We have way more information than that. We have a website, www.dpss.lacounty.gov. We're on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. We want to make sure that anybody who needs that helping hand these days at this time when so many are suffering, that they do not hesitate to reach out to us and apply for whatever benefits they may need to help their family through this time.
And Betzedek provides free legal services to seniors, the unhoused, immigrants, and workers in LA County, regardless of race, age, gender, or status, which we are very proud of because we are one of the few legal nonprofits that could provide services to undocumented workers. And I myself work in the Employment Rights Project, and we help workers with issues of wage theft, retaliation, discrimination. Unemployment is our new thing now. We had to learn a lot about unemployment the past few months, and we provide guidance on workplace safety. And we are really glad to see the county, the city, and the state step up and provide additional workplace safety protections for workers in light of COVID. And we're especially glad that the LA County Board of Supervisors has approved the Public Health Councils and proposed a new anti-retaliation ordinance, which we really hope will help protect more workers. But unfortunately, what we're seeing on the ground is when workers call about workplace protection issues, they ask, one, is this lawful? And two, can I be fired? And we are honest with workers, right? And we tell them that there are laws that protect against unlawful retaliation. But the reality is that workers know that if they report a violation, they can get fired. They can be retaliated against. And right now, that is a risk that a lot of workers are not willing to take, right? With unemployment being so high, it being almost impossible to find a new job. There's homes that have multiple people that are unemployed. So when workers see something that's concerning, the risk is often outweighed by the benefit of reporting something. And that's what we're seeing a lot. There's these great laws out there, great protections, but workers aren't calling to ask us how they can use them. Really, they're calling and to ask, can I be retaliated against? And it's really just not a risk that a lot of workers are willing to take. And that's in part because of there's always long delays, right? When you file a retaliation claim, it could be months, it could be years, which is what we've seen as well. And we see a lot of workers kind of just move on after a couple months or a couple years. they move on. They don't want to, it's a traumatic event that's occurred. They don't want to relive it. They're just done. They found a new job. So that's one thing that we have seen, and employers know this, and they're often emboldened by this. So it's concerning. And luckily, some employees that are retaliated against have access to EDD, right? If they're now unemployed, they can apply to EDD. But we know that EDD is not without its flaws, especially more recently. We've heard a lot about EDD, and we understand that they've been flooded these past few months, and they're trying their best, but a lot of workers are being left out in the cold. Back in October, we heard that over 1 million employees who filed for initial claims hadn't seen any money at all. And then more recently, what we're hearing a lot of is this issue with Bank of America freezing accounts, freezing workers' accounts. So that's their livelihood right there. And Bank of America will freeze their accounts due to alleged suspicious activity. And this is often even after EDD has called Bank of America and told them that this is a valid account. So these are workers that depend on their money to pay the rent, to buy food, especially during the holidays. It's like the one thing they can maybe provide for their children, and they're completely cut off. So this is really concerning to us. And a lot of workers don't know what to do when they have issues with EDD. And we really hope that you all can help us get the word out that Bethesda can provide help with EDD issues. Workers call EDD and they've been waiting for like many days, and they can't talk to somebody. They're given wrong information sometimes. And we really hope that workers know that Bethesda Legal Services provides free help with unemployment issues, and we collaborate with advocates throughout the state to figure out what's going on, because I think EDD is also trying to figure out what's going on, and we're trying to decipher what they're doing. So a lot of our more recent calls have been issues with EDD, and a lot of workers are saying, I almost gave up, but I heard about you on like a Facebook Live or through the media. And so we really encourage workers to keep fighting and to keep going and to seek help with EDD issues, and that's what we're here to do. And unfortunately, for our most vulnerable populations, they don't have access to EDD, right? Because EDD is people that are undocumented cannot access EDD. This is despite paying millions and millions of dollars into EDD and to other legal services, other safety net programs. They cannot access them, right? So we have already a population that's incredibly vulnerable, that's incredibly targeted. And so when they think about complaining about retaliation, they know that if they're fired, they have no safety net, right? So, which is why we see undocumented workers taking more risks, right? Not reporting issues. We've seen an uptick, unfortunately, of more workers working for less than minimum wage, or working for a daily rate that comes in significantly under minimum wage, or not paying overtime. And our fear is that we're returning to a time when, when employers were, when nobody was enforcing these laws, right? And employers knew it. Like, our concern is that that's where we're getting to, because employers know that employees cannot risk complaining at this time. And that's what we've been seeing. And so despite having what I think are some of the strongest laws in the country that protect workers and that protect undocumented workers, without a safety net there that workers know is there, that protects them and that will help them and that will support them when they raise these issues, they just won't do it. And personally, like, I can't blame them, right? Like, it's a big risk, and the risk just often, like I mentioned, outweigh the reward. So that's why Bethesda and a couple other organizations throughout the state are joining together to push for, so it's a Safety Net for All coalition that we formed that will hopefully encourage a state legislator to address this issue and to provide assistance to undocumented workers and workers without status, to provide them with economic relief when they are unemployed, and especially when they're unemployed, when they're retaliated against. So yeah, that's what we've been seeing a lot. And like I mentioned before, we all kind of try to do our part, and every agency is trying to do our part. And it's helpful to get legal cases out there and to win cases, but it's way more helpful when the media really blasts them and gets the word out, because that's what deters employers, knowing that we are doing work, that there are people and agencies and nonprofits out there that are keeping an eye on them and that have workers' backs. And if they don't follow the law, they may be next, right there. We will find a way to go after them. But without getting the word out, it's a struggle. So thank you all for everything you do and for helping us get the word out and really deter all of these issues.
Tell us how to call in to Betsadec and tell you what's going on.
So for workers, workers can call our clinic. We have a weekly clinic. It's now virtual. It's my favorite thing about my job, actually. So let me share that with you. There we go. Current slide. So we have a weekly clinic. Any worker, in LA County who works or lives in LA County can call in. You can call in at any time, and then we do an intake, and then an attorney or a volunteer will call you on a Wednesday from 4 to 7 and provide legal assistance. This is the way we find most of our cases. And so it's actual free legal advice, not just information. And again, this is regardless of status. So the majority of our clients are undocumented because we're one of the few organizations that does help undocumented workers.